If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. It's okay, I'll wait. How do we know if we're happy? What is happiness? And how does that interact with our own health management and our own ability to avoid unhealthy coping skills and opioid dependence and things like that? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hey guys, it's Dwight. I'm joined as always by Claire and David. We are going to discuss today what is happiness and what role does that play in our own psychological health. We're going to transition right into it here with David, starting out with a definition of what is happiness.
What I know about it and you know, and what I've read about it, and a lot's been written about it, you know, that happiness is basically creating conditions for it, to have things settled well enough in your life so there's some peace, and to not be in conflict inside and outside, so that not that things have to be perfect or that they ever really are, but that, you know, all things considered, you've made as good a peace and sorted things out as well as you can feel that. And then beyond that, surrounding yourself with people who care about you and you care about, and, you know, reflect that to you, and who are excited to be with you and enjoy you, and people you enjoy, is one of the biggest causes of happiness. I mean, you can see that. If you look at a baby and all of a sudden someone walks in it's excited to see, you'll see its mood elevate. It goes from a static or a distressed state to a happy state. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the major conditions for happiness. You know, it's always coming and going, but to begin to understand what we need, you know, and what elevates us and what keeps us there. I mean, we're meant to be elevated really through good experiences with other people, and then other meaningful things in our life. You know, that's kind of what all the sorting out is as far as I know.
It's a funny thing because it's based off of such a sensory level experience. If you say, are you happy? All of us can usually tell, like at a sensory level, how I'm feeling. And so I think we know what happiness is and even know what it feels like. But then when we sit down to define it, that's a really good definition you gave. As good as any I've ever heard, because it's a little hard to pin down the definition, right?
But we're right. And we're in a state of flux always. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes, you know, I'm filling out these forms, you know, and it says, you know, it asks about the mood and the so forth of the patient. I end up, you know, clicking 4 or 5 boxes because within 1 hour, they're sad, they're happy, they're right. I mean, you, in one period of time, you'll see, just, you know, an immense shifts in people. So, you know, really we're in flux. But it does help to know kind of what creates a baseline of well-being and therefore more happiness.
Well, it's one of the things that was eye-opening to me was the first time I heard someone really sort of stratify the term of happiness and talk about all of the different emotional experiences that can kind of fit under that umbrella. And I remember one of the things that stood out to me was they started by saying relief. How many people in here have felt relieved sometime recently? And saying, well, that's a form of happiness. You thought something bad was going to happen and it didn't, or it wasn't quite so bad. Relief is an emotion that some people here listening might remember from like a year or so ago. I don't know if it exists anymore, but it's a feeling that we used to have when bad things didn't happen. I'm just kidding, obviously, because it's comes and goes like everything else. But I'd never before thought of relief as a form of happiness. And it sometimes makes me wonder what kinds of things fall under that umbrella, because I think there's some subjectivity to that.
But I think what you just said, you know, especially what we're going through right now, is important. One of the basic feelings of achieving happiness is being content. You know, being.
That's a good part. Yeah, very important part.
You know, feeling satisfied, feeling safe. You know, and right now it's just things are just too crazy for any of us to feel a feeling of you know, being content with our surroundings. There's so much anxiety that I think is important as well. A sense of responsibility, being committed to yourself in a healthy way. There are so many factors that allows us to feel content with ourselves. But right now is just very difficult to focus on these things when everything in our surrounding area feels so, unsafe, so unknown.
And I think that's probably important for the listeners out there to know, right, is that right now is a time, I know from my work with patients when they come through treatment of any kind right now, just about everybody's talking about things that are going on. And to know that there's this, it's kind of like a little bit of a weight in our backpack, that we're all carrying around with us when things are really hard. And at the same time, then trying to thrive psychologically and trying to embrace healthy behaviors and healthy thoughts that can help us to be happy in whatever form we can. It's interesting, Claire, as you're talking, I heard two different kinds of content in there, like content and safe with how things are, but then also feeling more content with who we are, right? And then one of those is one of the second one can see us through when the first one's not available sometimes.
No doubt. So we truly need to find, gratefulness to the things that are solid to us at this time in our lives. It could be, your wife, a friend, something that feels solid and can give us that feeling of feeling, content, at least for that moment when we are with that person. Like David was talking about when the baby smiles, that's a feeling of it's okay, I'll be okay, because what we're going through is temporary. And people need to understand that it's not going to last forever. And the things that we have that are solid, they will. So it's important to have our expectations and not to try to oversimplify what happiness is. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think a lot of people oversimplify and just think, oh, I'm not happy or I'm happy. That means everything is great or everything is bad. There's no such thing. It's the important things, the solid things, the ones you can rely on that should give you that feeling of content, regardless. The world out there is going through that shaky moment for a second, and I think that's important.
The writer and mythologist Joseph Campbell said that, from his perspective, the purpose of being alive was to have an experience of being fully alive, which means that we can be sad when we're sad, happy when we're happy, grateful when there's things to be grateful for, and angry well when we need to be angry well, and that we can be fully human. And that, a lot of addiction or a lot of problems is an inability to tolerate the complexity and the fullness of our humanity. And really the peace comes from the work of not only just tolerating, but being able to actually kind of enjoy all these states. And the miracle of it, as far as I can tell, is that the more we are not in conflict with our sadness or any part of ourselves, or our happiness, and people are in conflict with their happiness or our gratefulness, the more we can allow those aspects of ourselves, the more alive we feel, the more we have to share. If you want to talk about a state of happiness, it's got to be somewhere close to that, because then nothing's left out. And because we are always in a state of flux, then what is there to worry about? And that's, we're going to go through all these things a million times, whether we like it or not. Why not kind of begin to have a philosophy in a way of seeing that as a way forward? And also, if we can tolerate ourselves, we don't have to go to opioids or alcohol or things. There's a better chance of that. But usually to do that, we need help from other people to actually be able to do that. That's something that's very difficult to do alone.
There's that sort of a self-permission, a self-acceptance of our own humanity. I like how you talk about that and how embracing all parts of our emotional makeup are part of allowing ourselves to be that person. Do you view that then, David, as a part of the allure of intoxication then, is to be pulled away from, like, I can live in that all or nothing state or delude myself into it if I'm intoxicated, right? I can transcend the emotions shifting underneath me without being able to control them. I can have this superhuman control of how I feel in the moment. Or do you see that as a rejection of the self in a way then?
I think at some level it's got to be, right, and because it's, I think these things are always fairly complicated, right? Because sometimes it's just habits. Sometimes it's what we've seen growing up and how other people cope, and we don't really have much of an understanding of other ways of dealing with things. So it's not to kind of, blame anybody for this or that. I think it's, in the end, it's kind of a lack of really understanding and feeling that there are better options. And I think as that takes hold, people actually, actually coping with drugs and alcohol, is not a great option. People actually suffer more. It's really overrated. So, but feeling that and knowing that deeply is, that's kind of the work of, well, certainly what we all do.
But David, Dwight touched on something that I believe so important to find, any kind of satisfaction is being in control. I think all those feelings that you spoke about that makes us human are incredibly important at different times of our lives, but being in control of those feelings, it's what makes us satisfied. And that's what I'm saying, makes us confident that things are not going to get out of hand, regardless if that's happiness or anger or sadness. I think it's so important to, have a limit and a control of those feelings. I think that really relates to happiness more than anything else, a balance.
Yeah,
per se, right?
It gets back to that safety too. It's interesting as we're talking that some of the types of happiness we're talking about are kind of more overarching, like talk about contentment or safety or having kind of appropriate expectations about my life, but feeling in control instead of out of control. Those are, in some ways, those strike me as ones that we feel that sort of even transcend the sensory level immediacy. In other words, we're feeling, if I feel happy just right now because I'm watching a movie or playing with my kids or something, that's an immediate experience. But at the same time, I could be doing something that's making me sad. But if I have an overarching contentment and an overarching safety and feeling of safe control in life, then I'm still happy in a way while I'm and more able to go through that sad period.
The truth is we have to come back to kind of step by step, day by day. What is it that is going to allow me to kind of get through today and be okay today and function today? And, and it really unfolds more like that. So
like you're setting goals?
I think that's right. Like setting goals, sizing things right? Not getting too far ahead of yourself and at the same time making sure there is something that you're moving towards.
When the dynamic of addiction and dependence settles in, David, you mentioned a little bit ago how it's not all it's cracked up to be. It promises happiness and it lies, right? What are some ways that sabotages our engagement with real emotional contentment, safety, happiness? What are ways that it disrupts that?
It confuses what it is and what it means to really take care of yourself. And I don't remember who it was who said to me, so you do the hard thing and life gets easier. You do the easy thing and life gets harder. It's kind of like that. You're not suffering correctly, right? There's always going to be things that are hard or things, but, you want to suffer towards things that matter, meaning not just suffer, but build and work towards it. And what happens is you really can get stronger. I had this experience just recently at my house where there were some people in my house doing some work, and, I would see them working, and then, I would think, oh, I can do some of that. And I would get out and I'd spend maybe an hour doing it, and I just wouldn't get it done right. And I mean, it'd be okay. It'd be fine. And then one day I went out, I just spent like 6 hours just doing, and got it completely right. Right. I just suffered through it till it was exactly done the way it needed to be. And what I got from that wasn't the physical part of it. It was the emotional. Is that all of a sudden I realized I could push myself and I could work that hard and I could be that engaged. And the energy that came from that was immense. Right. So it freed me up to actually move that into my life in more ways. So, and I think that's what happens is everybody with addiction, you start to get cut off and everything starts to get kind of limited in different ways rather than this experience of being fully engaged more.
There is a difference as well, from avoiding the issue, being happy about it. Like David is saying, there's got to be a result. I think sometimes, no, most of the time people use substance, to avoid the issue. What gives them a false feeling of satisfaction and happiness, but eventually it's going to pass, and you're going to need to start substance use again to avoid a little longer. And obviously, that avoidance is going to snowball on you. So it's understanding, the difference of creating happiness or avoiding distress. I think is extremely important, crucial for us as human beings. Even when substances are not used, it is used by a lot of people not to face the issues they need to. Put it to the side, where they keep carrying the issues constantly. As much as they think they are avoiding it, is actually weighing on them. So, as David was saying, instead of dealing with it, focusing on it and solving the problem, they keep on carrying with them.
That's where you'd hope for empathy too, right? When it comes when we treat people who are going through this recovery treatment process to get away from addiction, I know we've talked on a couple of programs about the empathy that is sometimes lacking, but the way you're just saying that's a new angle on that. You would hope that we all know what it's like to crave happiness and to wish we were more happy. We all know what it's like to feel out of control, and we all know what it's like to avoid our problem solving, right? And so, as you just put that's even when there's no substance use involved. So you'd hope we can flip around any of us who maybe haven't had that heavy-duty intoxicant abuse problem to turn around and say, oh, I get it, because I can get it a little bit then, and say that's what someone might be looking for. I guess we all are. I guess we're all trying to look for happiness, and I guess many of us avoid our problems sometimes in a very unhealthy pattern. It's just that it doesn't emerge as addiction, so nobody calls us on it as much sometimes.
And I think what I see out there, especially is what we're going through nowadays, you have to find happiness within. As much as this might sound like a Hallmark card for some people, looking for somebody else to make you happy, it's never going to work. You're not owed by others your happiness. You have to build it yourself.
That gets me thinking a little bit about sometimes people gravitate towards the substance abuse when they have not had some of these experiences we're talking about of feeling successful. That some people might feel like, oh, I went and worked on something either metaphorically or literally for years, and I put my energy into doing what I was told or trying to do things that would make me happy, and they didn't. And I fell into an addictive process. And now I come out of that, and if I'm in that person's shoes, I may not have a lot of confidence that happiness is something I can achieve. Right? What do you think about that, or say to someone coming into that where they're like, I don't know if I can recapture happiness because I don't know if I was good at capturing it before some of my problems?
No, I think happiness is not just a destination. I think a lot of people believe they were not happy before because they were expecting a certain result. Mm-hmm. It is so important to create happiness through that path.
I focus on happiness really as more as a process. When there's a cessation of pain, when there's an increase in energy, and when we serve each other and we're served by each other, I think are some of the major conditions for happiness. I think trying to capture a state is dangerous, because I think that's part of what leads to addiction, because it's not a capturable state. It's a developmental understanding of how life works, that we all need to be involved in meaningful work with each other and give and take and receive well. And that was my experience when I spent that day just doing that labor at my work, is that it wasn't that the job got done. That was fine, but it was that it freed that energy and that need was freed up. People really commit to treatment. If there's an immediate freeing of energy, their mood elevates, their addictive tendencies go down, whatever compulsivity is, they immediately feel better. The second they've made a call to come in and they decide, okay, I'm going to do this, and they've made that commitment, and there's this, so, these are the states, and they're missed. They're not thought, oh, I'm going to treatment, that's a state of happiness, but it actually is. People's mood elevates. So, again, I think it's, from my perspective, it's really just understanding how this works.
You can miss that if you get caught up in the expectation that a state is supposed to be captured. I like how you said that. If we think that happiness is a place I should be, and I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure to act that way when and to think we're supposed to be that way.
I believe there's a difference, what David is talking about. I think there's a difference between the result and the purpose of your action. I think when they call and they schedule treatment, there's a purpose here. So they are enjoying the road. They are enjoying, the process. I think if you wait just for the result, so you just get happy when it actually happens, but you miserate throughout the process.
And so then having an attitude,
the purpose gives you hope, gives you a sense of achievement, gives you, gratitude for the ability to have this opportunity. I think is so important, for us to, enjoy the path and not just the destination, because the destination can change.
I hadn't really thought about purpose in that way before, tied with happiness. Now I'm always going to think about it. That's a really good point.
But I think that is in everything in our lives, maybe the destination is going to be better than what we planned in the first place. But if we just concentrate on that, then any change to that is going to be a letdown.
And even more like a threat too, right? It's going to be a letdown, but also if I'm caught in that addictive dynamic, I'm going to proactively anticipate that threat that it might mess with my feelings. And then that's more of a tendency to want to take that control back of the feelings. Not a healthy control, right? But I'm out of control. So I'm going to try to reach for a substance for control that is in the short term might feel effective and then actually throw me out of control. Yeah.
But again, I think that's what we said in the beginning of all this is oversimplifying what happiness means.
Mm-hmm. But trying to take it more in bite-sized chunks, right? Of trying to evaluate my day, not so much am I happy in a big way or how did I feel all day? It's like, how did I feel for part of the day? What moments stand out for moments of joy or moments of sorrow?
Yeah, I think, Claire, you make a really good point about it, because I think in feeling grateful, in bringing up gratitude and reflecting on all the kind of miracles that exist within just a life, it kind of makes you coalesce and gives you a state of some period of kind of reflection on what could also maybe be called happiness is a way of just feeling like, oh wow, that there's amazing things happening, and just that we're here is amazing from a certain perspective, and so to be able to move in and out of kind of the daily things you got to get done and this and that, and move into a bigger perspective And just, I think that's a moment, and I certainly don't do that enough. I'm always grateful when I hear people remind me of that. And I think that's maybe a way to coalesce that part of ourselves.
Yeah, I think there's always also a factor of humbleness, a part of us that understand that a lot of things, happens, by chance. And if we're here, if we're healthy, if we have a chance to do something next hour, is also, as simple as it sounds, is also a reason to be grateful. And I think a lot of people faith feels that inner happiness because of how humbling, having an idea of something bigger than you is. And now I'm going a completely different area.
It's interesting
that
to
I
tie
think
that in, though.
this young new generation is missing, and I think that's where the entitlement and the the need for things is coming in. There is a lack of humbleness. There is a lack of gratitude for just being and having the opportunity.
Do you
does that make sense to you guys?
I think it does. I like the tie-in.
It makes so much sense to me. Yeah. I'm glad you said that.
I wonder, do you feel like hope ties into that too? Because I'm thinking about, in particular, when you see that difficulty with gratitude and humility, sometimes, there are some of the trends in the world that kind of lead to that. I know that with a lot of young people I talk to, they also suffer from a loss of, as many of them are like a loss of hope. Like if I work hard, it's going to do any good anyway. And that's jaded, I guess, would be one way to say that, to throw that log on the fire and say, if I don't have hope,
I think the thought that if I do this, I'm not going to achieve it anyway is concentrating on the destination and not the purpose of what you're doing while you're doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Is, the story that I see, even with my 3 children, they are going to achieve the world. They are going to, be the best. Again, there is a process. There is a process that you should be happy through it. There is even people that are with us through treatment. How many times do you hear, David, I'm bored. Why are you bored? You're feeling right now. Be grateful. You received that opportunity, to be medically detox, and now you have, a new chance here to do this all right, to be emotionally present, to be emotionally grateful for the opportunity of being here, of meeting people. So I think is missing the content. It's like people go to restaurants, and let's just order the dessert and leave. Let's enjoy the dinner, and if the food takes a little while longer to come in, let's enjoy the conversation.
Yes, right. That is so critical, because that at its root, the cause of boredom is an inability to move into a process level of life. Because when you're in process, there's no boredom, right? Because you're just in the midst of life unfolding, right? You're not looking for something. That's a misconception, and probably kills happiness quicker than anything I can think of. People who are successful and live good lives live primarily in a process state. They're not looking for an end result or things to happen. Not that they're not making decisions or distinctions or, deciding what they like more than not. They do. But within that, they're living primarily in a process level. And really, that's one of the major parts of what I think, has to get shifted, right? So that, that people, like you're saying, see life as, oh, we're going to dinner. Okay, well, food's not here, but here we are, right? So what's going on, right? And right in that process level, it takes you immediately out of boredom.
Right. I agree. I 100% agree. And I think if people just concentrate, and again, on the moment, Dwight, I work with somebody that have some medical issues, some, chronic disease.
Yeah.
And because I'm a workaholic, I said to this person at one point, we need to work more and we need to do more. I mean, he said to me, Claire, I guarantee you that the last minute of my breath, I will not think I should have worked a little more.
Oh.
And you know what? I shut up that second and I told him, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So, me, thinking, and we got to work, we got to do, we got to achieve, and stop to think, we got to enjoy. We got to do what we need to do, but with enjoyment through it, regardless of, the situation. We have to find the positive parts of it.
Yeah, it's things that get you hear that kind of mentality, and then once in a while something takes root at that moment, and you're like, oh yeah, actually, and it is funny because I think in some ways this is where it ties in a little bit with that addictive model, right? We even use the phrase workaholic, right? It's because you enjoy and get meaning out of your work. And you've built Wiseman Method, right? You built it around what you want it to be. And so it's easy to get into something that we do feel passionate about and enjoy. And we are happy. But to me, what you're saying there is kind of that risk of neglecting other things and not rounding our lives out and saying like, oh yeah, I should go home. I'm going to have fun here working till midnight, but I could go home and, and I'll have fun there that I can't obtain here. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So it is learning how to balance things, learning how to accept our limitations, enjoy the every different moment and not just concentrating in achieving one thing. Mm-hmm. Because I think nowadays, just looking around, and I keep saying about looking around because the world nowadays is causing so many people to have a hard time getting out of bed and facing the world. I think we are extremely, extremely lucky to be in the USA, to have a tremendous amount of resources, emotional resources, scientific resources, educational resources, social resources. Could it be better? Of course it could be better. Should we always search for better? Of course. But what are we angry about? We should be happy. We should be grateful. Mm-hmm. And we should be working to always better ourselves. Yeah. But I think just waking up and, I was born in a third world country. I know the difference. And I think that's why I am more patriotic to the United States than most people that were born here. So knowing what it could be, what it could have been, and what it is. And if you're here right now, and if you're able to make choices, and you have options, it's pretty good. And
really good.
You should be happy. It's really good. And that itself should bring you happiness. If you have the choice to make an option in the next hour, you should be happy. And I think that's really important for people right now as they wake up and think, I can't face this world. You have the benefit to face this world right now. And you have options of how you will feel regarding the things that are happening. You can feel sad. You can even feel a little anger. But you should also feel grateful, and you should be happy by what you have. And you can't forget that.
Thanks so much for joining us again here on the Wiseman Method Podcast. The Wiseman Method Podcast is, of course, a creation of the Wiseman Method, where we help to do detoxification for opioid dependence and treatment and help you start your pathway back to health. Learn more about the Wiseman Method and detoxification and the rapid detoxification process by checking us out at opioids.com or follow us at opioids on Twitter. The music for today's episode is Medical by Clean Mind Sounds. The show is produced by Popped Collar Productions, a company that helps you to get your podcast going, particularly those in the nonprofit and healthcare sector. Check us out at poppedcollar.net. If you have questions that you would like to see us address, go ahead and tweet those at us at opioids. We'll be back again soon asking more questions about how to be healthy and happy. Because when you have questions, you can find answers. And when you find answers, you can find hope. Hang in there. We'll talk to you again soon.